Today, we will be going through my custom-built YT Decoy and breaking down my initial thoughts on e-bikes, as this is the first one that I've ever owned. I got this bike built up at the beginning of March, and upon my initial outing, I could not get off of this thing, and I rode it for a month straight without touching any of my other bikes. For the first ride, I went out and rode one of our more technical trails here in southern Utah, and it's got a pretty serious climb, and immediately I was just blown away by how fresh I was by the time I got to the top of the trail and how much longer I was able to ride for than on my analog bike. I'd assume most people have the same initial impression, but it was still quite the amazing first experience for me. After this initial outing and getting accustomed to the e-bike's capabilities, I was super inspired as to how I could apply this tool to trail building. For me, this is where I've really fallen in love with the Decoy. Having the ability to access trails with tools so easily due to the pedal assist is such a game changer. Diving into some of the more technical details of my particular build, I'm running Marzocchi suspension, and I've got the Bomber Air in the rear with the Z1 Air up front. At the moment, I have a bit of an odd suspension setup going with both the shock and fork maxed out on volume spacers. For my initial ride, I did not have this bike set up stiff enough. I was pretty ignorant and just set it up exactly how I have my Capra set up, and yeah, that thing was way too soft. So I got home, was a little frustrated, just tossed all the volume spacers in there, went to 20% sag, and I've left it at that for a little while now. Since then, I've continued to run the 20% sag max volume spacers and no compression, and it's been an adequate setup, but it's not perfect. I'm definitely still looking for a bit more support, so I'll be moving to 15% sag with the stiffer air spring, and I'll continue to run the max volume spacers, and then I'll dial those back until I find a good balance between the mid-stroke support and the bottom out resistance. For wheels, I've got the RaceFace NextR 36 complete wheel set on here. Given the weight of the e-bike, these stiff carbon wheels offer a great feeling of support to the bike, and I've loved having them on here. Matched to those wheels, we've got Maxxis Assegai in the front and a DHR II in the rear. That's my typical setup, and you really can't go wrong. And in those tires, I've got CushCore Pro inserts in both the front and rear tire. Typically, I do not run CushCore Pro in the front just due to the weight, but on the e-bike, I found that for just maximum confidence, for me just absolutely thrashing this thing, the CushCore Pro in the front has really helped out. For now, I've also kept running 27 PSI in the front tire and 31 PSI on the rear, and I haven't had any issues with that setup, so I'll continue with that moving forward. Moving on to the cockpit, I've got the Turbine R RaceFace stem in the 40mm length, in the NextR 35 bar, in a 35mm rise, and 760mm width. Mounted to that handlebar are some Shimano XT 4-piston brakes. I've been running these brakes for years, and they've been great to me, and they've been amazing on this e-bike as well. One thing I have noticed is that with the metallic pad in the rear, the shavings tend to get stuck onto the magnet that's located on the rear rotor, and if you're not careful about wiping it off, it will hinder the performance of the motor. Looking at the drivetrain, we've got some Shimano SLX bits on this bike. Typically, I'm always running either XD or XTR on all of my trail bikes. However, this bike arrived with SLX already installed, so I figured it would be a good opportunity to test it out. One thing I have noticed regarding the drivetrain on the e-bike is how important it is to make sure your chain is appropriately lubed. I'm always on top of lubing my chain, however I have noticed that on the e-bike, you just need to pay extra close attention to make sure you're maintaining optimal performance. All in all, the e-bike has been a great addition to my quiver, and I view it as a trail building machine and an amazing tool for when I need to scope new trails. If you have any questions regarding my setup, please drop them below and I'll definitely get back to you. And thanks for watching. Catch you next time. Peace.